workshop, and then we'll be this afternoon at 1:30. We'll be down in Suite 220. And also, because we're going to run tight with lunch, there is lunch available in the break room for you all today after our procurement meeting. So with that, yes, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Okay. What time is it?
It's almost 11.
Okay, see, I'm looking up there.
Yes,
and
yes.
I was like, why are we waiting until 11?
Yes,
Okay,
we're
so
almost
we are
11.
talking short break.
5 minutes. the Ramsey County Procurement and Innovation and Modernization workshop to order. And of course now I have to find where I put all my other notes, but just wanted to share that we do have the procurement team. As we heard from Ryan earlier, it's procurement month in Minnesota, and appropriately so. Our team has worked, before COVID, we have to think of like BC as before COVID, right? In BC times, there was a movement to kind of change how we've done procurement. We've had these workshops. The team had been putting things in place to address those, and then COVID hit, and they were working virtually 24 hours a day to get money out the door to community, to work with partners and all the new programs that we put into place during COVID to make sure we've got new contracts and new partnerships. And so I just wanted to just take a minute before we start to thank Alex Kutza, our Chief Financial Officer, Dan Anofsky, Ling Becker, who have really worked, and the whole team behind you, and I know there's a lot of folks behind you who have worked endlessly over the last couple years to meet the needs of our community quickly, to meet the needs of our organization quickly, and attempt to change your entire system along the way. So thank you very much. We look forward to this conversation, and with that, I'm just going to turn it right over to Alex.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, thank you for having us here today. I look forward to this morning and this afternoon where we get to tell you all about the great work that we've done and also talk about where we're going in the future, as I know this is a really important topic for many of you and also our community and our staff. So just to kind of highlight, I'm here with my colleagues, lucky enough to be the first one up and do the introduction. But right after I present the introduction, it'll be the Director of Workforce Solutions, Ling Becker, and our Procurement Manager, Dana Nofsky, who will talk about the work of the procurement and contracting action teams and the work that's been done in that area. Then we'll take questions from all of you on that piece and break, come back in the afternoon when Elizabeth Polsman, the Director of Policy and Planning, and Eric Peniston, our Ireland Fellow from St. Thomas, along with Dana Nofsky, again, we'll be talking about the Keene Report, which was in front of you in September of 2020, the recommendations for next steps and aspirational goals, which is the first time we're going to be showing that to this group. I will get the pleasure of talking to you about procurement modernization and that effort to really rethink, as Madam Chair mentioned, how we do procurement in Ramsey County. And then finally, Elizabeth and I will talk about future and next steps and take any more questions that you have. So today we're hoping that we're going to provide you information and updates, as you notice, and we also would like to have a discussion on the progress that we've made and the next steps in integration with strategic priorities. I just want to take a minute here. You're going to hear from a lot of people today about what we've done, but I also want to admire that, we have a lot of challenges in this area. COVID has been an opportunity in that we did do procurement differently during that time, which showed us how you can do things differently. But we also I hear regularly, as I know many of you do, from community, from staff, from others about challenges in interacting and getting to do business with Ramsey County. So to me, this means we have a lot of opportunity, right? When you have challenges, you have opportunity to do things different, to be bold. And many of you know that our word of the year in finance is dare. Daring to be bold in this space and think about how we do things differently based on the feedback and what we've heard from many people. We're working hard to acknowledge the issues and come together to improve them. You'll hear about all sorts of people at all levels throughout the organization, including community that are involved in this work. You're going to hear about the PCATs, the Procurement and Contracting Action Teams, the Keene Report, Procurement Modernization, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention my colleagues on PCGT, Procurement and Contracting Governance Team. They are helping lead this work, helping make sure we're moving forward, and helping guide the work. So, timeline, where have we been? I wasn't here in 2018, but there was a procurement fair where that started, and we had a small vendor group to hear about their experience with the county. And then in 2019, PCAT started. So there was a charter created, membership, and some work done at the service team level. 2020 came around and Keene independent consulting, was selected to advise us on how we could do aspirational goals when we do not have a disparity study in Ramsey County yet. Work actually was presented in September 2020, and Elizabeth will be updating all of you on that work. COVID hit, and as I mentioned before, it put a hold on much of our work, but also created an opportunity for us to do some work differently. Then we come to 2021, and the PCATs were re-energized. I like that word because they really were. The work that they're doing, they're having monthly meetings with leads. Ling and Dana were named as the PCAT leadership group. We had procurement specialists added to the PCATs who are staff within Dana's team. And there are really a lot of opportunities to do report outs on this. And I don't want to take their presentation. They're going to do a lot of updates for all of you to see the great work they've done. We also kicked off a procurement modernization effort. So I'm going to get to talk about that later. But basically, we engaged process improvement through the Enterprise Project Management Office to assist in reviewing from start to finish how we do procurement in this county with a lens of what feedback have we gotten from community and from our own staff about how that works for people. We had 2 large events as part of that, one in October of 21, which was a rapid process improvement and for the grants management side, for grants. I call them expenditure grants because it's money out the door, not grants coming into Ramsey County. So we had that one, and then in November, we had a value stream model for the procurement modernization, which the grants work will be folded into the larger procurement modernization effort. So as you can see, a lot's happened and is continuing to happen. I want to spend a little time on this slide. I hope throughout today and throughout this presentation, you see these themes in everything that we're presenting. A small work group, took all of the community feedback. We have gotten community feedback from many different areas. The equity action circles, individual service teams that went out and solicited, especially in health and wellness feedback. The evaluation work that was funded by CARES and all of you saw had feedback on procurement. And we looked at it, a group looked at it and said, okay, what are the themes that we're hearing and how are we going to address them? So when you look from top to bottom here, practice relationship-based contract partnerships. So instead of being transactional, how do we be a partner in this space? I get to be on the EAC policy and practices group, and that's a space where we talk a lot about this, and I hope you see that throughout our efforts in the presentation today. Recognize, acknowledge, and develop a process for contracting for racially and culturally specific organizations. This work and how we're trying to find solutions is really in the policy and planning area, along with many others, to think about defining a countywide definition of culturally specific services and how do we engage with that. We're having meetings and we're working with health and wellness in particular and others, and Elizabeth's team is leaning into that space. Develop a grant process to expend funds more efficiently to community. Well, I already mentioned we had the rapid process improvement, and you're going to hear more in procurement modernization. We have run a couple pilots, and we have a couple more kind of in the wings that are coming forward. I want to be clear that the grant process, I would like to fold into how we talk about all of procurement, that it is another path that we have when we talk about professional technical contracts, client service contracts, and really grant contracts. All of these should be simple, efficient ways that we get money to our community. So that work is going to be part of procurement modernization, as well as being more efficient in how we contract and in procurement. Ensure Black, Indigenous, and people of color community has equitable opportunities. I think when Elizabeth and her team roll out the Keen Study aspirational goals here today and talk about that work, you'll see that there, as well as throughout some of the procurement modernization work. Provide orientation and ongoing training on contracts, invoicing, and reporting. It's really important not just to make the process simpler, but to train and think about how do we actually tell people how we do our work and how they can help do the work better. We did have opportunities with that in COVID as well, with the operational support services that Tara Bach is leading. And Dana's gonna talk today, and Ling, about some of the work that's been done, including a technical assistance RFP that's really innovative. And then insurance requirements, that's in my area. Risk manager Jenny Grosskopf has been engaged, and that will also be part of procurement modernization and how we change that. We've had moments where we've done changes, but we need kind of a systemic look at how we do that. So you'll continue to see these things throughout today. I want to just level set. You guys have seen this graphic before. Where are we focusing? Where the circle is? The purchasing and contracting governance team is overseeing the PCAT work, which you're going to hear about just shortly. And then this is I should have changed the title on that grants and contracting work group. We've kind of evolved over the last year. This was an original graphic that we used. And the middle is the PCGT. And they really, I just quickly have to name Karen Francois, Elizabeth Tolsman, Scott Williams, Chayton Ganatra, Sam Clark, Ling Becker, Jennifer Schuster-Yeager. These are the people helping lead and push forward this effort. They support me in my work. They support all of us who are here, and I really appreciate what they're doing. That team has really grown in the last year to be a group that is raising up the PCAT work, that is committed to moving forward in the procurement modernization work. And as you see, those are leaders across the county that can make sure that this happens.
Alex,
yeah.
Can we quickly go back to the previous
Oh,
slide?
sure.
For one reason, we've never had a slide that is this clear before that shows these 4 quadrants, and I wanted to call this out for the board. We have not talked about this during COVID, but maybe we did, the last conversation I think was 2 years ago. The model you're hearing today about the governance through to action teams and how that funnels through the entire organization exists across these 4 different areas of work in Ramsey County. This was a focus that we started back in 2017 to build budget, performance measurement, racial equity, community engagement, purchasing and procurement structures that left without these structures, I would posit to you that the organization has to function on an individual department level and kind of figure it out on its own. So the idea was you need structures within a big organization that force things to happen in ways that just don't happen in the individual pieces. And today we're only talking about the one, but I love this slide. I hadn't seen it until this presentation pulled together this way. And this was so new to us when we talked about it a few years ago. I just wanted to stop on it for a second because all 4 areas now have teams running as a part of this. And this was one of the slower ones to get started because there was so much happening. It's really excited to talk about it today. So thank you for letting me take you off your game and go like high level for just a sec.
No, that's what, when you're only working here during COVID, like I thought you'd seen this all the time. That this was kind of like part of what you did, right?
Yeah, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is a great chart, so thank you for calling it to our attention again, County Manager. So our service teams, just tell me where the service teams.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and maybe if someday you want to have a whole workshop on this alone, I would honestly be happy to do it.
Yeah.
None of this is within the service team structure.
Okay.
The executive team at the middle, who reports to the county manager, is the way into the formal, traditional structures of hierarchy and government in Ramsey County. But these teams are cross-cutting teams that run across service teams at the level of governance, right? Or like high-level policy set after the board, followed by action-level implementation. This is how you engage leaders at all levels. But in the past, the way we would have done this is we'll have libraries do one here and corrections do this work here. And this says, no, we're going to form service team level groups at the action team level and county-wide level group at the governance team level to bring the information to the county manager and then on to the board. And so it's really a recognition that for a long time, part of our overall structural belief was we were not set up to do the work that we wanted to do. And this has been a big part of trying to change that. It's all behind the scenes, but I wanted to pause on it because it's really the fundamental underpinnings of how we're trying to change how we work.
And thank you for that. And so what I would just imagine that there's service team representation on all of these teams that are there.
So the last thing I'll say to it, so it's countywide reps that sit on the governance levels. You saw the list, and you'll see procurements, you saw the PCGT today, the procurement contracting governance team. Then the action teams are actually at the service team level. So EGCI asks, what is our role in this space? And you'll hear some of that today from Director Becker. And then for budgeting, it's the same thing. Health and Wellness has a budget action team. They lead the entire service team's work in support of the deputy county manager. And so that's how you go from countywide to service team level, right?
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, that is a great segue, because I think, Dana and Ling are going to be talking much about the PCATs. So I just wanted to show you the structure that PCATs and the procurement modernization come into PCGT, and we as a group of leaders help make sure that this work continues to move forward. So now I'm going to pass it over to Dana Nofke, our procurement manager, who's going to start on this section of the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor, Director CFO Kutza, Director Tolzman, Director Becker, all of our colleagues who are watching, as well as our community members. Today is day 726. I am 4 days shy of exactly 2 years working from home. And I have to tell you, I'm a little emotional. I walked into this great building. I saw the artwork for the first time. It was almost like the first day I walked in as a Ramsey County employee. And we're going to have a lot of other employees that feel the same way as I do. And in the last couple of years, we've had lots of challenges, and that gives us lots of opportunities. And CFO Kutza took one of my life mottos, but it didn't break us. It didn't break us. It may have made some of us a little more silver on top, but it didn't break us. It's my pleasure to be with you today. Thank you. My mom says the same thing, so I appreciate that. Okay, so let's level set and let's remind everyone about our procurement and contracting action teams. And for those who may be new to this initiative, I want to walk through this slide a little bit more slowly to set the groundwork for the slides coming after. So PCATs is what we call them, and the goal of our PCAT is to align our efforts within the service teams county-wide for procurement and contracting policies, processes, and practices. Another one of our goals is to ensure contract selection to increase diversity, use of small, disadvantaged business enterprises, with an emphasis on minority and women-owned businesses. The third, create strategies to advance racial equity, incorporate meaningful community engagement, develop marketing and communication strategies to promote contracting and workforce inclusion opportunities, and then develop performance metrics, goals, and work plans that are specific to each service team, but also county as a whole. Report those performance measures and use our open data portal in order to be fully transparent with the public with regard to how we're doing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Becker.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor, and everyone else. My name is Ling Becker. I'm the Workforce Director, and I serve also in the Economic Growth and Community Investment Service team. As the CFO referenced, Dana Nofke and I have been serving as PCAT leads since late last year. In that role, we focus on bringing together the various chairs of the various service team PCATs. And I serve as the chair of, or co-chair of the EGCI service team PCAT, along with Scott Yonke over in Parks. And also want to call out Joe Friesmeyer, leading the team over in Health and Wellness, Lisa D on the strategic team, Kelly Mock in Information and Public Records, and Megan Schaefer in Safety and Justice. And this is a demonstration of exactly what the CFO and County Manager O'Connor was demonstrating around these structural constructs that allow us to do this work deep and broad. So I think you'll see on here that we have representation for almost every department in the county in some way. And we have continued on an ongoing basis to reevaluate whether we have the right people at the table, as well as to circulate folks so that we increase the depth and breadth of knowledge throughout our service team as well in these leadership opportunities and better understanding of the what we're trying to achieve. So collectively, since last year, the PCAT chairs have met with Dana and I regularly. This has been really valuable for all of us. We use this time to share about best practices within the individual service teams, again, to ensure that we're pollinating the good ideas and also maybe sharing in some of the challenges and difficulties. It's a good opportunity for us to roll up our sleeves and actually really kind of get in the weeds on what's working and what's not and have very, very honest conversations. While the different service teams, PCATs, have different focus areas that they're working on, we have found that there are several common themes that we all are orientating around. And so today I'm going to share with you some of those themes. So training for staff at multiple levels of the organization has been a focus of all the PCATs. This has been everything from staff being trained in partnership with procurement on the CERT program, how businesses can be certified, what that process is, how to use the database, and also on purchasing policies, processes, and procedures. And this is sometimes not the most exciting things to talk about, but it's really critical. These are like the entry points by which we are able to help and support our small businesses. So we try to create some synergy and energy around these topics so that we not only learn about them, but then we can talk about them in our groups, and it's been very valuable. The PCATs have always also been working hard on establishing performance metrics. And as Dana mentioned, we're reporting results on Open Data Portal. And what I have found to be even more valuable are conversations happening at the service teams when it comes to understanding our spends and trends. I would say at our service team level, we get a lot in the weeds. We're looking at spreadsheets that are 1,000 lines. You know, we have our controller on our service team in EGCI, and so we're really leveraging that data. And every service team might pick a different strategy by which they're maybe looking at the data. In our service team, one thing that's been fascinating is we were trying to understand areas where we were doing the most purchases and isolating some of those because we felt that those very frequent purchases for some of the same things would be an opportunity point. And so, you know, for a season, we'll work on that, and then we'll kind of work on a new area. So I think the whole point is we're rolling up our sleeves, we're really looking at some of the detail, and there's so many ways to look at the data and the information to get better, but I think we're each trying to find a nuance that can help us be able to advance the work. And specifically in EGCI, we have implemented additional software to more accurately track our CERT spend on construction projects. This effort has been led by our Parks Department. As they were already purchasing much needed project management software, we were able to leverage that purchase to also include the ability to do our small business contracting work. So I want to thank the Parks Department for taking that leadership on behalf of our service team. But again, another demonstration of this work isn't successful by it sitting in one particular area, and everyone has to have a lot of ownership over it. And so our ability to spread the work on, you know, who's going to raise their hand to help a particular aspect of this work is really, really critical when everybody is very busy, but this is still an incredibly important set of work. In addition, as the CFO indicated, we've also, as PCATs, have had some opportunities to report out countywide. This has been to our executive sponsors of Ann Feynman, the Deputy Director of HR, and Elizabeth, Policy Director and the CFO. And this allowed us to hear from all the service teams and really allowed some of the other service teams to showcase the projects that they're working on so that our team members, not just Dana and I or the chairs, could hear some of the work as well. So again, we're trying to, if nothing else by osmosis, like really try to get people to see that this is something that lots of people in the county are trying to move in the same direction. And I explained this to the CFO last week. I feel like we're turning dials and we're all maybe got our hand on our own individual levers, but collectively we're trying to like steer a a really large ship here under their direction. So, and then finally, and this has been alluded to quite a bit, but the PCATs have really focused on outreach and engagement, and particularly in the health and wellness service team, they've done a project or several projects under the umbrella of what they've called community-centered contracting. And the service team was able to work with a select number of vendors to provide additional TA once they became vendors to the county and help them through that process. And also the service team has been able to bring on more community members for the full solicitation process, like all the way from the kind of the solicitation creation all the way through the contracting process to support community. And I think that's something that's really important to call out, is that the procurement process is a very long continuum where we can make effort. Everything from where we bring people in to how we support people to do their applications, all the way to the point where once we're in contract with them, how we ensure that we have a relationship with them, and it's not one that's transactional, but that we're in these projects together. And so I know Commissioner McDonough has heard this through our workforce board, but one really great example of the investments you all made with CARES that has really advanced this type of thinking is in 2019, we released our federal youth allocation for RFP. We received 4 vendors. And then most recently in 2022, we received 30 applications. And so some of that happened was the relationship building that we did through CARES. We spent a lot of time with organizations. We did do some short-term, smaller things where we created a better website for them. We created more tools for them to apply. We also had our accountant create a video on how to fill out a budget. While those are important, and I think those made some impact, I think really where the real impact came is that people felt that they wanted to do business with the county too. And I think that's a big, difference. It's not only that we provide the tools and the opening, but that people would see that a relationship with the county is one that is mutually beneficial, and that they would find that to be something that would advance their mission as an organization, instead of say, you know what, I saw that come through, I'm not interested, in applying for that, because I know what that's gonna all entail. And instead, I think we got a lot more folks going, I wanna be a part of that with them. So we were really proud of that with the work that Commissioner McDonough helped us lead, and really had youth help inform that RFP too, from the very get-go to the end. So I think another example of there are so many places along the continuum where improvements can be made. And so trying to find those spots is something we want to encourage all our groups to do. So the last thing, and I think Alex mentioned several times the Equity Action Circle and trying to stay in connection with that work that rose out of COVID, but really ensures that we're connected to community. And then last, I'll just quickly share with you about a program called CERT Connect. This is something that started in EGCI as a COVID pivot. We were not able to go to procurement fairs anymore in person. We were not able to do the kind of outreach that we did. And instead, we started a project where we started creating networking opportunities for underutilized CERT companies to come and meet our project managers virtually. And so we had a team in EGCI that represented all the relevant departments, and it was led by John O'Fallon from our department, my department, and Workforce Solutions. And they collectively said, what are we needing to buy in the next quarter? What are things that we need? And who are those people on the CERT database? And let's get them in a room with us. And so we provided a venue for them. So on a Monday, 50 people in our service team would get this meeting information. This is the company coming on for CERT Connect. And then we would basically meet with them on Thursday for a half hour. They got to share. The business owner would come. All the project managers would be represented in the room. We ensured that every department sent somebody. And we got to hear what their business model. We got to hear what made them passionate about their work and why Ramsey County should do business with them. And so it's been a very great project for our staff. Really got a lot of buy-in and excitement. Again, like that's part of the challenge here is we need to ensure that this isn't just something happening at the director level or, or at the county manager level. We need to have all project managers in the county focused on advancing this. And so this was a real tangible way that they could be engaged. We've met with 20 businesses so far since 2021. We've heard some valuable feedback from them. You've seen a few quotes here that I've provided. We have an internal webpage that communications helped us create so that we can reference back to who we saw. Because sometimes it's like out of sight, out of mind, and now you're gonna buy something and you got delayed, and that was 6 months ago, and you met somebody. Who was that? So we wanted to make sure no one forgets who these folks are too. They spent the time with us. We wanted to make sure there was an investment, a return on that investment of their effort. And then really excitingly, Kelly Mock, under the leadership of Kelly Mock and Information Public Records, they launched their own set of Cert Connects as well. And so they're focused on a different service line of products, more like professional services, whereas we're really focused on things around construction, buildings, that type of thing in EGCI. So I'll let Dana continue.
Yes.
Yeah, happy to
Thank
take
you.
questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is amazing work. Thank you so much, everyone who's a part of it. So I'm going to ask a question that you've heard me ask before, and just tell me if it's coming up in another sequence or when I should ask this. So I think most of us know by now, we know a small business in Roseville, actually, Minvest. It's an engineering company, and run by a very, articulate woman, Hyun Kim, who really wants to do business with Ramsey County, and she's really having a hard time still getting in, because what people tell her in the engineering firm is that you need to be with a bigger company, and then those big companies would give business to small minority cert companies. But she says they don't necessarily have those goals out there in those big companies to give the work to the small companies. So she's just trying to get work in Ramsey County. I feel like I'll be a success if I can get us in our work to provide business to companies like hers. It doesn't have to be exactly hers, but if a small minority-owned, women-owned business is really wanting to do business, at least give her a reason why she's not able to get there. But everybody says, go, we give business to big firms that can handle our work, okay, but then it doesn't trickle down to them. So just, is there stuff being done to help with that kind of thing?
Yeah, Commissioner McGuire, I do think that you'll hear more about it throughout the day. I know Ms. Kim as well, and I know we've been connecting with her and Public Works Director Schoenecker and I, and she serves on our workforce board and is an amazing volunteer to Ramsey County. I think within our service team, we've wanted to work on debundling more projects, and that is probably one of the best paths for an organization like hers. And so we've heard her and continue to work on, opportunities such as that. So, yeah, thank you. Before I turn it to Dana, I want to give one more shout out to our Public Works Director. This Cert Connect, not only is it that we want to grow businesses doing business with Ramsey County, but we actually want to spread this to other municipalities. And so I felt it was really important to do this extra note that in support of this program, our Public Works Director invited me to go to the Joint Engineers of Ramsey County meeting, and we shared about this, and now some of them are coming to our Cert Connect. So in a lot of ways, we in ourselves cannot be the only business that these businesses are trying to grow with. They need to grow with other public entities as well. And I think we can be a good conduit to helping with that. So I wanted to thank Ted for his support in that. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Director Becker. So these are some examples so far that we've shared with you of how we have raised the PCAT work across service teams, highlighting some very innovative programs that we've created within Ramsey County to be able to still meet with vendors, understand who they are during COVID, not being able to meet with them directly. So now I want to pivot and show some of the initiatives that we've done in the last couple of years. And these initiatives, I want to thank the Purchasing and Contracting Action team members. They are very interested in this work, and they spend thoughtful time talking about it. And they bring up some ideas that really are county-wide changes. And so these are some of the changes that they have brought up. In addition, As CFO Kutza said earlier, we have had a lot of community feedback. And we are digesting that, we're reading that, we're looking at it from a cross-county-wide view. We have a long way to go, and we're excited to support what we've heard from community. Here's some community feedback that we've heard as well. So for community assistance, you've heard a reference to technical assistance RFP. So what we heard during COVID was that we needed to be able to provide some vendors some opportunities to help have them be able to go to a vendor who can help them understand the process. How do I read a solicitation? How do I fill out a solicitation? Now, this is coupled with the fact that we're going to be changing the way our solicitations look and feel too, right? But this is an integration of vendor support that we have never done in Ramsey County before. And it starts pre-solicitation, it's during solicitation, it's post-solicitation, it's contract, it's even business acumen afterwards, right? How do I invoice? How do I send in the reports that are required of me? So where we are in this process right now, and again, this came out of several community engagement reports that we got, was we are in the process of developing requirements. So we have met with several internal county departments. We will be meeting with community as well to talk about what do we want to be included in the services for this RFP. What does this RFP look like? And we're not doing it in a vacuum. We are going to engage community members that we heard from that were participants of the engagement sessions so that we can ensure that we're meeting the needs that they've raised to our attention. This is not going to be a quick RFP necessarily because we're being intentional. We're being mindful. Revised how to contract with Ramsey County webpage and added videos and PDFs. If you've been out there, I know there's a lot of conversation about Demand Star, to which we'll get into at some point with modernization with CFO Kutza this afternoon. But we did hear that it was a little bit complicated. It is a little bit complicated, but we did put out some videos specific to Ramsey County and how to register specific with Ramsey County. We're developing a community engagement session to identify community procurement training topics. I'm really excited about this one. Working with the vendor right now to identify a scope of services. We heard that the vendors would like more resource opportunities. One might say training, but we look at it as a resource opportunity. And what we wanted to do was, instead of predetermine what would be helpful to them, we wanted to hold an engagement session where they would tell us what would be helpful to them. So we could spend a lot of time creating some training or resources, but we may hit the mark. So what we want to do is ask them. And so this community engagement session, we're hoping will go in April, and we'll hold 2 of them. Open data portal, column heading, that's a tiny little thing, but it's a big thing. If anyone's into data, you know that data labels matter. And so we changed the heading based on some feedback. 2022 anticipated procurements, I'm super excited about. During COVID, we didn't get a chance to do this, but we try to forecast out what our next year procurements are going to be, and we put that on our intranet site. So the vendors can see what's coming up, and we keep it updated every month. So we have it both internally, but we have it externally as well. Staff assistance. We've heard both from the community and also internally that staff from PCATS, they need some help, they need some support. So our recent initiative that we just rolled out was an implementation of a Laserfish Ramsey County Cooperative Contract Keyword Field Search. Whew. So what that means is now all of our Ramsey County cooperative contracts you can find in Laserfish, the full contract. So there's no more question or concern about what does a contract say. You don't have to go to one point person to get the information. You can go out there and get the information for yourself, and you can share it. Ramsey County cooperative contracts are cooperative contracts. Any other public entity that has a JPA with us can use them. So we, share the knowledge, share the skill, share the contracting with other entities. And then a really big one, and I want to just call this out. We heard in community that we were originally calling our contracts Ramsey County Master Contracts. In the procurement world, that is what they are called. But we had a lot of conversation around that. And so we're in the process of changing our terminology. And our terminology will now be Ramsey County Cooperative Contracts. And so that's another big change that we're making.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you. Before we move off this slide, thank you so much. Boy, I'm so old school about laserfish. When I hear laserfish, I think of the old library, things that you roll, and that there's these plastic. I'm like, oh my God, laserfish feels very archaic. So can you just explain to me what new laserfish is?
So,
all I can think of.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire. So Laserfish is Ramsey County's official electronic repository.
Oh, okay.
And so it's where folks go to find any county board documents. Any public documents are available on Laserfish. Laserfish has an internal component to Ramsey County staff. It also has an external component to the public.
And you're thinking microfiche.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. I know.
I just barely know what we're talking about.
Okay, exactly. Thank you for dating. Right.
I was in a conversation with someone else
Thank
yesterday.
you. You're right.
So
it is totally.
in some ways, when I actually think about it,
It is.
Laserfiche is what microfiche used to be, but in
It's
a way
just
that
in
is
an
far more
electronic.
accessible. And so this is the way in which we're doing it. And I will say this though, when I thought you were going to go somewhere else. When I joined the county, Laserfiche was about as useful to a person as a microfiche. It was extremely cumbersome. It was still in a lot earlier iterations. That's changed over the past few years. And I think you're seeing the benefits finally of it. And so this is becoming a much more user-friendly system.
Thank you for that. You're right. It would be microfiche versus laserfiche. I appreciate that.
I'm kicking him under the table.
We could throw microfilm in there too.
Oh,
For those of us that remember microfilm. Okay, a couple more slides for you. Communications. County Manager O'Connor, you might be happy to hear about this, but our equity in procurement flyer is just about ready to share with our PCAT teams. This is an idea that County Manager O'Connor asked. It's premised off of what the state of Minnesota does. It's a handout that you can take with you to meetings so you can show what our programs are as well as how well we're doing. Our procurement brochure is just about ready to go, updated, and we are also blasting, I don't know if you've seen this, but we are also blasting news articles and social media posts regarding contracting opportunities. In fact, one just went out today. And then we're adding instructions on how to pull CERT data on the open data portal so that our public can also understand how to review the data and how to look at it and how to use it. With these items, these are global county-wide items that came up as recommendations from our PCAT teams. And so once communications has finished drafting them, we'll be taking them back to the PCAT members. We'll be giving them an opportunity to say what they like about it, what they would like changed about it, and then we'll be bringing it to our PCGT, Purchasing and Contracting Governance team, so they can review it as well. Another big initiative that we did, and this, I don't get to spend a lot of time, and I could talk about this for a long time, because I get really passionate and excited about procurement. We did something that we needed to do for a long time, and I'm very proud of this. Inclusion of contracting for equity section is now included in all solicitations and all contracts. This section is our commitment to advancing racial equity, non-discrimination, equal employment opportunity and civil rights, and diverse workforce inclusion resources that we give to our vendors. So I want to calm down a little bit and just put some attention to this to say, we're really proud of this. And when I say we, this is global Ramsey County. I don't ever want you to think that I'm all procurement. It's not about Dana Nofty, procurement manager. It is about the team of people that you don't often get to see that support this and keep this work moving. So moving on. Okay. Another thing we heard is that we have had a lot of transition, and I think you all know that, right? We've had a lot of redeployments, we've had new people come in. Procurement is a kind of a hard thing to grasp, and so one of the conversations that we've been having and a lot of feedback we've been having is our internal staff needs some training. Let's level set again after being gone 2 years. So what we did in procurement is we created some procurement foundational courses. We've gone through that, we've created the content. We did a trial training session with PCAT members who were interested in attending. It was a full Friday event. And so we've created, and I don't want to get into each of these things, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it after this session if you want to know more. But we've created the content, now we'll be rolling it out. And the idea is we'll roll it out with actual presentation and maybe in face if that's an option or via Zoom, but also we'll record it so that new employees that come in can have access to the training and can go through a foundational training course in order to better prepare them to be able to work with procurement. Okay,
Did it.
we've made it to the end. Any questions for Director Becker, myself, CFO Kutza?
Yes, Commissioner Carter.
This is not fair. It's not a question. You know, I just wanted to respond, to share my thoughts. I've watched this work, of course, over the years, and I just have to share with you how responsive and strategic and focused I believe this is. Responsive to the voices that we've heard, that have been willing to spend time with us over time to help us create the kind of change in our processes that will uplift and support an inclusive contracting process in Ramsey County. And it is just wonderful to see what the collaborative of minds that have engaged across the organizations that have been shared today has been able to do, to place this work at the center, to make it strategic, and to make it so responsive to what I believe we do need in Ramsey County in the procurement and contracting arena to ensure the vibrant community that we all talk about. So to all who have been engaged in this, you know, leadership, community, all of our staff, thank you so very much. I look forward to hearing more about the work after our lunch break. But thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this has been a long time in coming, and we've gone through some bumps along the way, okay, maybe cliffs along the way, but have really brought it back to where the foundational. It's kind of funny because I thought when you said that, it was like, I'm looking at this and I thought you said foundational horses. And I thought, oh, not courses. And that's what you had actually said, courses. But when you think about it, when you're moving things along, that foundation is really so critically important. So maybe horses is the right way to pull this along. But I also want to say that, you know, some of the things, when we talk about the opportunities that are out there, and I know that you know this, but I had a bank, a smaller bank within my community that really wanted to be able to bid on a county contract. And so finally it was like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that you get everything so that you can do that. And they got it and said, you know what, we really can't. And so that goes back to, okay, what are the requirements? And maybe there are some things that are required by law that if you don't have that, you can't do it. But looking at taking that deeper look then it wasn't just the opportunity to apply, but what are the requirements within that? And is there any flexibility in those to allow for the smaller businesses, whether it's an engineering firm or a bank or whatever it is? And if there is, then making that change. And I think that's where these teams come in, to be able to pinpoint that, not just go, okay, well, we offered, you know, what more can we do? Well, there's a lot more we can do. So I just want to say thank you for taking that deeper dive, which is what this is all about, and then moving things forward.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Reinhardt, that's a great question. I just want to add also to that, you are absolutely right. We need to look when it's a policy. I've told everyone, you'll hear me say this afternoon, but things on the table except federal law. Pretty persuasive, but that is probably beyond my ability. But that said, I also want to point out when we can't do something, we need to clearly explain why, so that people understand that, hey, we're not making this up. Like Dana Nofke and I aren't sitting in a room saying, hey, we shouldn't do this. There's a law or a requirement or something, and clearly state that, and then maybe we work as a team, you know, eventually to actually change federal law in places that we really find cumbersome to our community.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonough.
Yep, thanks, Madam Chair. And I've got to testify this afternoon, so I'll be at part of the workshops. I won't be at the end to do the wrap-up. So this is really more kind of what I wanted to say at the end, because I won't have that opportunity. And I had a chance to talk to Ryan last week. When this came out on Thursday, I spent Thursday night with this thing, and I was blown away. I was blown away with the work that's been done, and you know, the information that's here and the progress that's been made, and really about how it really truly aligns with our values, right? But the one thing that kept coming back to me, and you know, I don't bring this up because I told her, I don't even know if I want to bring this up because I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, because today's almost like a celebration day with the work that you're bringing back to us, that this is, you know, done that well. But I want to bring it up in a way that, you know, tries to help bring some confidence, at least to me, and I think to the community. You know, as we're doing this work, we need to bring along at the same time how we measure and make sure that the products that we're buying or the services that we're buying, what we're doing over on this side, the taxpayers are getting that value for those dollars. Our staff is getting the work, whether it's a nonprofit or that support they need, that it's at that level, right? And it's not in a I got you way. It's in a way like, where do we got to build capacity to make sure that this strength of utilizing contracts, you know, and we do it all the time. And it's not just, you know, focused on this, right? I mean, we've got big legacy organizations that have worked for us a long time that don't necessarily deliver what we need them to deliver, even though those contracts are written in a way to, you know, make sure that happens. And I'm wondering how are we thinking that we bring that along, right? I told Ryan, you know, I used to work for another governmental agency. I don't want to call them out here, right? But we had some issues. You know, I'm a tradesperson, and you know, we had all contractors, and you know, working in house. We spent a lot of time going back and fixing work and getting it right for students. And all right, I kind of gave a heads up, right? But you know, we had a conversation with the facilities manager, and it was like, you know, I asked them specifically. So the valve gets put in wrong, causes damage. You know, at what point, and we keep seeing this, you know, company coming back and valves getting put in wrong. You know, at what point, you know, do we say, you know, we've got to do something different here because we're not getting what we buy? And his response to me was, I don't care if they put it in wrong 100 times. If every time I ask them to fix it, they fix it, that's good enough for me. But that shouldn't be good enough, right? We should be able to make sure that, you know, if after the first valve's put in wrong, we don't see another valve put in, and whether it's helping build that capacity to make sure, whether we're building in those checks and balances to make sure that as we're building this infrastructure and support, we're also building this to catch up and go parallel, or maybe it's coming on later. Maybe you guys have talked about this. I don't know, but I just didn't see it mentioned in these slides, and I just wanted to make sure I took this opportunity here to bring that up and how we're get a sense of how we're connecting that.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner McDonough. I mean, I don't take that as a criticism at all. I think that's really important. As stewards of taxpayer dollars, we are, you know, from investing and building wealth in our community all the way through to then showing how do we take that investment and return it back to the taxpayers of Ramsey County and provide the services that we need. So I'm going to bring us back to foundational excellence and the funding that was provided in the 22 and 23 budget. And there's a couple pathways there. One is, you know, the audit function, where under our Chief Compliance Officer, Pesek, she'll be leading up the audit work, which we're going to talk about a little bit this afternoon as well. And that's kind of, I always think of auditors as helpful, right? Not everybody thinks that, but many of you know my dad's an auditor, so they're always kind people in my mind. But you know, that's work where they're there to help us do better, right? To take a swath of contracts and say, hey, did we get what we needed to? And when we didn't, what do we do? And then I'm going to move to the operational support services run by Director Bach in the finance area to say, okay, as Dana and Ling mentioned, like, that we sometimes need to support our vendors on how do you submit an invoice? How do you do subrecipient monitoring? What does subrecipient monitoring even mean, which is a requirement of much of our federal dollars, right? And saying, okay, we're going to support you to make sure you're doing the things you need to do to be successful in that as a partnership, not a transactional relationship. So I think we have the start of being able to do that, as well as, you know, when we when we redo this process and think about a more streamlined, simplified procurement process, I think we might have a little more capacity then within the service teams to pause and say, okay, what was delivered on this contract at the end, and then how do we report back into, you know, the audit or just in operational supports and make sure we're doing the work we're supposed to do. So I think you should hold us accountable to that and give us a little time to move forward with this and come back and talk about it. But it's definitely on the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure I said it out loud to you folks and everybody here so that, you know, it's not something that all of a sudden on the end we get caught like, oh, what happened here? You know, we hit performance goals here, right? We're doing better with all these numbers that we set for values, but on this side, we're not hitting the performance that we need, you know, to either support our staff or to, you know, justify it with taxpayers or to, you know, make sure that we're, you know, getting the right quality of product that we're asking. So I appreciate that response. I appreciate, you know, as we move forward, starting to get a sense of how that gets incorporated. Again, it's not about like an I got you, right? It's, you know, we got to build capacity on this side for that infrastructure. And I think, you know, we got to be a part of building the capacity on this side to make sure we're getting that performance. Or, you know, as you point out, Alex, you know, if it's federal dollars, we don't have to pay money back because we didn't get what the federal government said we should have got, right?
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough. All right, well, we're going to adjourn. We'll come back together at 1:30 downstairs in 220. There are snacks in the break room if you're hungry, because we knew we were going to work up to lunch and quickly after. So, yes, that was good. That's a good one. Thank you.